Hi friends. You monkey. Isla is off school today, so do you want to come and say hi?
Hello.
You wouldn't think that she was sick today, would you? Okay. So welcome everyone. We'll get started. Today's class, the intention for today's class is about the hip flexors, so the fronts of the thighs. And for a lot of us, especially if you do a lot of sitting during the day, this area can get very tight, and the nervous system equates a lack of stability with a lack of safety, and when it does that, when it doesn't feel safe, then it makes the muscles tighter. And so a tight muscle doesn't necessarily mean that it's a strong muscle. So we will work a bit on strength today, length and also strength. Another thing to do just before we move into the class is if you would like to, this is just maybe a little bit of homework for after the class, is just to become aware of your walking. And what you're wanting to do is as you walk, and so you go, what do you, let me think, you go heel toe. So when you walk, you go heel, toe, and then the back heel would lift, and then the toes would lift off. So what you can try to do is just bring awareness to the back heel and seeing if you can keep it down for maybe a millisecond longer. And all you're really wanting to do is bring awareness to this area. By keeping the heel down for that little bit longer, you're opening up a little bit more into the hip flexor. So it's just to help to bring awareness to this area as we walk. So just something that you may like to do after the class and as you go out for a walk, and just pay attention to even like 30 steps of just that heel down. Notice how this can help to open up through this area. Okay, so let's come down to a seated position. We'll start by setting an intention for the day. So I've set the intention for the class, but you may like to have an intention for your day. Just closing your eyes, thinking about what you would like from the day. And it may be just to become aware of the way you are sitting and the way you're walking and moving your body. Okay, and then you can just release your arms. Okay, and then just take your hands out behind you and bring your feet out in front of you. And have your feet over hip-width distance apart. And we're just going to lower the knees down to one side and then the other. So start off with just lowering them down to the right. Notice what you're feeling. Notice if there's any restrictions in the hips. Notice the rotation that you feel in both legs as the left leg goes into this internal rotation, the right leg into external. And then just bring your legs back up to center and then lower the knees down to the opposite way. Notice if the side feels different or the same. And then again, just bring your knees back up, and then we'll just go down to one side, back and to the other, keeping your feet where they are. So just noticing the restrictions, noticing the sensations that you feel as you go into this internal and external rotation. Okay, and then just come back up to sitting upright. And now we're going to take the legs out to, I'll just turn slightly. So you'll have your right leg out in front and the left leg out to the side. And now what we're going to do is we'll start with the hands, kind of like we did with windshield wipering, and then we'll do it without the hands. And if it does feel a bit too much for you without the hands, then of course lower your hands down. So what you want to do is just sit up tall. Your hands will come behind you. And then again, taking your knees to one side and then the other. And then again, just sit up tall, especially noticing this area through the back thigh. So it'll be this area of the hip flexor. Okay, and then again, taking your knees up and then come to the other side. Again, you sit up tall, find the length, and then your hands can come down and then knees to the opposite side. And again, just sitting up tall. Again, just pay attention to what you're feeling in this area. Notice if there's any restrictions, if there's any pain. Okay, we'll do one more full round with the hands down, then we'll do it without the hands. So again, you sit up tall, take your hands down, and then move to the opposite side. Okay, now come back to center. Okay, this time we're going to do it without the hands. So you'll use the tone of your center to move the legs. Okay, so take your knees down to the right and again lengthen. Take a nice deep breath in. As you exhale, you're going to swing your knees around, tone through your center, and then come onto the other side. And again, take a nice deep breath in, lengthen. And then as you exhale, knees to the opposite side. And again, you sit up tall, just breathe in, exhale, contract, and then take your legs over. Okay, let's do another 2 full rounds. You may start to move forward and I'll probably end up moving out of the video frame. Okay, and just moving with the breath, so breathing in, exhale, come over, last full round, so take another deep breath in. Exhale, take your knees over, and last time. Okay, so bring your legs all the way up and over to the right, and then I'll come back onto the mat. Okay, come down to lying on your back. Hug your right knee in towards your chest. First of all, just find your spine long, so base of your skull on your mat. Chin gently drawing towards the chest, but not tucking the chin in. Okay, so as the leg hugs in, you want to keep the pelvis in this neutral position. So notice if you're tipping the pelvis back into posterior tilt. So just holding it in the neutral position. Then you're going to start to take the opposite leg long. As it goes long, notice if it starts to pull through the front of the hip and start to bring the pelvis forward into this anterior tilt. So quite often when we are tight, this can start to happen. We go into an anterior tilt of the pelvis. So just taking it to a place where you can still stay in a neutral pelvis position. Okay, and then just bend your leg, switch your legs over, so have your right leg bent, hug your left one in towards you. Again, notice if you're tipping the pelvis back here, so you just take it to a place where your pelvis stays neutral, and then start to slide the leg forward. And again, just pay attention to what you're feeling here and notice if the pelvis, the hip points start to move forward with that pulling of the right leg, and just bend your knee. If you find that starts to happen, just bend the knee and stop there. And then you may like to just pull your thigh a little bit closer to help balance out the pelvis. So as this one comes in closer towards your chest, you may start to feel it slight tipping, and the other one goes long, and that'll pull it back to a neutral position. So just pause here, just take a couple of breaths, noticing the sensations. And then bend your right leg and lower your left leg down. And then you can just give your knees a hug, and we'll circle the knees away from each other and then towards each other. Just take a couple of breaths in here. And then you just lower your legs down. Step your right foot off. Hold on, let's not do that. Just step both feet off just slightly out from hip width distance apart. Okay, now you're going to lower the right knee towards the right, just to where it stops. You're not forcing it down to the ground. And just notice what you feel through the inner thigh, across the pelvis. And then just bring your knee back up. Okay, and then lower the left leg in, and just paying attention to how the side feels. And then groin across the pelvis, and then bring your knee back up. Okay, now we're going to go a little bit deeper into the pose. So you're going to just allow your right knee to drop out to the side, again not forcing it down. Now push into your left foot, allow the left hip to float up as the knee comes down towards the ground. So the more the hip lifts, the more you'll notice that your knee draws down. Now give your glutes a little bit of a squeeze here. Notice that contraction through that left side and feel that release all the way across the pelvis. And then slowly lower the hip down, bring your knee back up. Just take a breath, just noticing the difference between the left and the right side. And then drop your left knee out to the side. And again, not forcing it down to the ground just yet. You're going to push down into your right foot, allow the hip to lift, and as the hip lifts, then you'll notice that the left knee will drop down towards the ground more. It doesn't have to touch. And then again, you're feeling this across the front of the pelvis. Give the muscle, the glute muscle, a squeeze. You'll probably feel it up through the side of the waist, keeping the shoulder anchored on the ground. And then just slowly release, and then bring your knee back up. Okay, and then you can just give your knees a hug in towards your chest. And you can rock from side to side. Okay, make your way up to a seated position, and then all the way up into tabletop position. Okay, we're going to work our way around the hip. Okay, so come to just a strong tabletop position. So hands out to about shoulder width distance apart. Find your neutral spine. So gaze will be down towards the ground, crown of your head drawing forward, tailbone back. So your spine is long. Bring some tone to your center so your belly is not dropping down towards the ground. And you're bringing your pelvis more to a neutral position. So again, there's that tilt forwards and tilt back as you're rounding. So come to a place where you're about neutral. Okay, so just going to balance on your left knee. You can have your toes curled under or foot flat on the ground, so just however it feels comfortable for you. Okay, and then hug your right thigh in towards your chest without rounding so much, so keep the spine long. Okay, now you're going to take your knee out to the side, so lifting it up to about hip height. And then rotating it around, so toes are now pointing up towards the ceiling. And then hug your thigh in towards your chest. Again, take it out to the right and drawing it back and then rotating so the thigh is facing down, toes up. Let's do it another full round in this direction. So thigh hugs in, take it out to the right, and again lifting it up and then rolling it around. You're working all the way through the hip. Okay, now let's take it back, so just lower the knee down, just pause for a moment. We'll do it in the opposite direction. So you're going to lift the leg up and then drawing it forward, out to the right, and then taking it in toward your chest, and then taking it up. Okay, and again out to the right, hugging it in towards your elbow, towards your chest, and then taking it behind you. Let's do it one more time. So again, taking it out to the side, hug it in towards the elbow, the thigh to the chest, and then lower your knee back down. Okay, just pause for a moment. You may like to slide back to a child's pose if that feels good for you. Okay, and then come back up to that kneeling position. Okay, we'll switch to the left side. So again, hug your thigh in towards your chest, and then you're going to take your knee out to the side, about hip height, rolling it around so now your toes are up towards the ceiling. And then bringing your thigh forward. Again, tone your navel here, so notice if you're arching into your lower back. Okay, so thigh comes forward, leg out to the side, taking it around and rolling around through the hip joint. And then again, knee drops down one more time. So forward, out to the side, and then you're rolling the leg around so thigh faces, front of the thigh faces towards the ground, toes up towards the ceiling. And then just lower your knee down. Just pause for a moment, and then we'll go in the opposite direction. So you'll take your leg up, so thigh is lifting up towards the ceiling, toes pointing up. And then you take your leg, so you're rotating out to the side, bring it forward, so you're bringing your knee towards your elbow, and then hugging the thigh in towards your chest, and then take the leg up. Okay, we'll do that again. So again, out to the side, hugging it forward and towards the chest, and again, taking it up. Last time. So around, taking a big circle here. And then lower your knee down. And again, you may like to slide back to a child's pose position. Just taking a couple of breaths here. Okay, now lift up. And we're going to come up to a kneeling position. I'm just going to show you that pelvis tilting forwards and back. So you're going to allow the pelvis, just hands onto your pelvis, and then just allow the pelvis to point forward. And so your buttocks will be sticking out and you're probably creating a bit of an arch into your lower back. So this is a anterior tilt to the pelvis. Okay, so come back to a neutral position, and then there's a posterior tilt. So the hip points are moving back. You feel like you're tucking your tailbone down and under. So that's posterior tilt. Okay, and we'll do that again. So anterior tilt, hip points moving forwards, or they move towards your thighs, and then your hip points move away from your thighs. And again, there's that feeling of the pelvis drawing back and the tailbone tipping under. Okay, so just come back to a neutral position. We're going to do a lunge position, and what I want you to do is do that posterior tilt so you can start to feel the stretch up through the front of the hip flexor. Okay, so let's just come to a downward facing dog to begin with. So curling your toes under, lifting your sit bones up and back.
You may like to just pedal out through the feet, so lowering one heel down and then the other. Just bending the opposite knee. Keeping the sit bones up, keep pushing down and pull through your hands. Okay, and then when you're ready, you're going to take one whole breath, lift your right leg up towards the ceiling. And then hug your thigh towards your chest. Just draw your shoulders forward and then push into your hands and then step your right foot forward. And just land it wherever it lands, and then you can use your hand behind the ankle to guide it all the way forward. So it's about in line with your hand. Okay, and then lower your back knee down to the ground. So you can have your toes curled under or the top of your foot down, so whichever feels most comfortable for you. Okay, take your hands onto your front thigh and just push into your thigh to lift your chest up. Okay, so holding here, if you need support under your back knee, you can place a blanket or something under there. Okay, so what we're going to do is gently tilt the pelvis back. Okay, so remember the anterior tilt moves it forward and you'll be arching into the lower back. So then we want to take it in the opposite direction. So you stay pretty much upright, and it's a very small movement. So you just feel the pelvis start to tilt back. You should feel it through the left thigh, so the front of your left thigh. Just holding here. Okay, and then just release that. Okay, now we're going to come forward. So as you come forward, you want to feel like you're zipping up. So we're not anteriorly tilting the pelvis. So we're not dropping down into the joint. So feel like you're zipping from pubic bone towards your navel. Tone your glutes. And rather than the rib cage popping up, see if you can pull the rib cage down. Okay, so that'll keep us from doing the anterior tilt with the arching into the lower back. Okay, and then from there, you can just start to glide your pelvis forward. Just until you start to feel this again, just into the front of your hip flexor. You can keep your hands onto your front thigh. Just breathing here. Okay, and then take your right hand onto your hip, turn your left palm to face up, and then reach up towards the ceiling. Now you're going to push down through your left knee, reach up through your fingertips, and this may be enough for you here. Otherwise you're going to start to flex over towards the right side. Just continuing to breathe. Okay, reaching both arms up, come back to center, and then plant your hands down. Just take a couple of breaths here. Okay, now if it's comfortable, if this is not comfortable for you, skip this pose out. So what you're going to do is have the top of your foot down, so your toes are pointing towards the back of your mat, and then you're going to slowly start to lift the back knee off the ground. And again, you should feel this right into the front of the thigh, right into your hip flexor. Just breathing here. Come down anytime you need to. Okay, and then just gently lower your knee down and then curl your toes under. Okay, again, we're going to lift the back knee off. So just come into a place where you feel stable through that front leg, that front knee over your ankle, and then take your right hand over the top of your right foot. Okay, so you've got your kind of your thigh against your arm. Okay, now you're just going to just gently move the left hip off to the side and back again. And just notice if there's any sensations that you're feeling as you do that, just through the front of the hip. Just exploring, just a bit of self-discovery. And then just hold here. Okay, now you can stay here or you can come back down onto your back knee. We're going to slowly start to lift up. So you can take your front hand, your right hand onto your front thigh and lift up. So again, feel like you're zipping up, and instead of creating that big back bend here, tone through your center. And then we're going to reach your left arm up towards the ceiling. Again, this may be enough for you just to hold here, otherwise starting to flex. Notice if you're popping out through those front ribs, draw the ribs down and just breathing. And it's going to feel quite intense. So keep the breath flowing, just breathing into the pose and come out whenever you need to.
Okay, we'll just take another full breath in. Exhale. And then inhale, reaching both arms up. Plant your hands down and step back to your downward facing dog. And then you may like just to move from side to side, bending one knee, then the opposite. I'm just gonna tuck my top in so it doesn't fall everywhere. Okay. Okay. When you're ready, again, push down and forward through your hands. Just have your knees bent and then lifting your sit bones up, lengthen. And then lift your left leg up towards the ceiling, toes stay pointing down so the pelvis is not moving, shifting out of alignment. Okay, now hug your thigh in toward your chest, ripple your body forward, and then you step your foot forward. And again, you can use your hand behind your ankle to glide it all the way forward and then lower your back knee down. Okay, so notice how it feels on the side. If you need support under your back knee, you can do that. You want to be drawing down through the knee. Another option is you can lift your back knee up, slide it back a little bit, your leg back a little bit more, lower the knee down, and then just pull the thigh slightly forward. And that'll mean you're resting more on the femur bone rather than on the patella on your kneecap. Okay, so let's rise up. Hands onto your front thigh, lifting up. And again, we're going to just do that gentle tilting of the pelvis. So you want to feel the pelvis, so hands onto the sides of your hips, and then gently pull the pelvis as though you're gently pulling it back. Tailbone will be tucking in. So again, we're going into that posterior tilt. And it's a very small movement, but you should start to feel it through the front of your thigh. Okay, just release that. Okay, now we're going to come forward. So again, you want to feel like you're zipping up. Remember, tone your glutes, and then instead of your ribs lifting up, feel like you're drawing them down. Okay, and then we'll start to allow the pelvis to come forward. So we start to feel in the front of the thigh. You can reach both arms up, or keep your hands onto your hips or even onto your front thigh. Again, just breathing here. And take your left hand onto your left hip, reaching up through your right, and then we start to flex over towards the left side. And just be mindful of what you're feeling, and you take it to a place that's comfortable for you, staying within your comfort level, not moving into pain. Okay, reaching both hands up, just take a nice deep breath in. And then lower your hands down. Okay, from here you're going to uncurl the toes if they were curled. And again, this is just an option. You can skip this pose out if you need to. Okay, so you're going to push down into the top of your foot and start to lift the kneecap up. Now keeping the spine long here, gaze down. And just breathing. Just take another full breath in. And then breathe out. Lower your knee down. You can just shake out through the foot if you need to. Okay, and then curl your toes under. Then you're going to take your left hand onto your left foot. So you can step your foot just slightly off, keeping the knee over the ankle. And then lift your right knee up. Again, just explore here. So you're dropping the hip out to the right and then to the left. So just noticing if there's any areas that you feel this more intensely. So again, a bit of self-discovery here. Okay, and then when you're ready, you're going to take your hands onto your front thigh, push into your thigh to lift up. Okay, and again, just adjusting here. You want to keep your feet railway tracked. Okay, and then again, we start to zip up. Again, tone your buttock muscles. And then keep those ribs drawing down. And you can reach your arms up, holding here. And then maybe taking your left hand onto your hip, reaching up through the right, and then take it over towards the left side. Take another full breath in. And breathe out. And then take a breath in, reach both hands up. Plant your hands down and step back to your downward facing dog, and if you need to, maybe a child's pose. So again, just pedal out through the legs.
And then maybe just coming down to your child's pose. You can take your arms alongside you, maybe resting your forehead down, and maybe stacking one hand on top of the other on top of your tailbone. Okay, and then place your hands alongside your knees. Going to lift your chest up, curl your toes under, and then lift your knees up, your hips up. Okay, just take your sit bones back, hands underneath your chest, and then find length in your spine. Push your hands in towards each other, and then hinge at your hips, come all the way up to standing, and release your arms. Okay, now we're going to just go into a little bit more of building strength into the hip flexors. So find balance by just, we've been doing this over the last week. So the four corners of your left foot down into the ground. Okay, and then shift the weight into the left foot and lift your right knee up. And you're going to take your right hand onto the front of your thigh, push your hand into your thigh in toward your hand. Feel that isometric contraction, that tone through the thigh. Just breathing here. Okay, now slowly release, take your leg behind you. Okay, we're going to bring the arms and the breath into the movement. So reaching your thigh up, knee bend, reach your arms forward. And then inhale the breath, take your leg behind you, so now you're lengthening through the front of your thigh. And exhale, lifting up, contract, and inhale to release. And again, exhale, and inhale. Let's do it another 2 full rounds. So lifting the thigh up, just visualizing that your hand's there, and then releasing one more time. So exhale, and inhale. And then release, just step it out, just walking it out. Okay, let's switch sides. So you get any movements you need to into the hips. Okay, now again, find your center through the right foot. Then shift the weight into the right leg. And you're going to lift the left leg up. So again, hand onto the front of your thigh, and you push your thigh in towards your hand down into the thigh. So you're creating this isometric contraction. Notice if you're leaning like I am, try to be more upright, so zip up. Just breathing here and holding. If you do need to, something to help you stabilize, you can use a chair or the wall. Okay, just breathing, take a breath in. Exhale completely. And then inhale to release the leg behind you. And then let's bring the arms into the movement. So exhale, lifting the thigh. And inhale, taking it away from you, lengthening through the front of the thigh. And again. Reaching the arms behind you, leg goes long. And exhale, lifting up. And inhale to release. Let's do it another 3, 4 rounds. So lifting the thigh up. Again, visualize that you've got your hand against your thigh. Then take the leg away from you. And again, exhale. And inhale, last time. So go lifting it up, contract. And then away from you, release. Okay, and then check it out. Oh yeah. Okay, did you feel that burn? Okay, let's do a little bit of movement for the hips. So this is that salsa movement that we have been doing. Okay, so first of all, just take your hands onto your hips, and you're going to just bend one knee and then the other. And if you would prefer, you can start to lift the heel up off the ground as you bend. Okay, and at the moment you'll probably see that my shoulders are moving a lot into the movement. So we're going to just keep those stabilized and get more into the hips. So just stacking one hand on top of the other, and then just bending one knee and then the other. Just walking it out through the hips. Okay, just another couple of rounds here. Just allow the breath to settle. Okay, and then slowly release. And one more, shake it up. Okay, come down onto your back. So just come into a squat first, hips back, and then come all the way down. We'll come right down onto the front side of your body. Just hands alongside you. You can have your hands down, forearms down, or hands just alongside your chest. Okay, pubic bone draws down into the ground. Now you're going to keep the forehead down or just slightly lifted, and then just lift the legs up, reaching out through the fronts of the thighs. Pubic bone draws down so you're supporting your lower back. Keep drawing your elbows back. It's like reaching forward through the sternum. Okay, and then take your legs away from each other and then hug them in towards each other and lower your hips down, your legs down. Okay, let's do that again. This time you can lift the head up a little bit more, keeping the gaze down towards the ground though. So again, pubic bone draws down. So toning through your center, lift the legs up. So reaching the thighs long, and then you can slowly start to reach your sternum forward, elbows draw back, and then again, take your legs away, and then hug them in towards each other. Hold, and then release. And just move from side to side, push into your hands, lift your hips up, and then take your hips to one side, bring your legs forward, and then come all the way down. Okay, so just a couple more moves to go. So coming into bridge pose, so again, that same sort of sensation of opening up through the fronts of the thighs. So push down onto your feet, heels towards your buttocks. And you're going to just start to lift your hips off the ground, hug your outer shins in towards each other. Find that connection between your feet and the ground, and then you start to lift the hips up more. So as you start to lift up, feel like you're opening up through the fronts of your thighs, reaching out through your knees, feel your glutes turn on. Just give your glutes a squeeze, just breathing here, and then slowly release. Come back down to the ground, just allow the pelvis to settle, spine just to neutralize. And then take your arms out to a T. Lift your legs up to a tabletop position. And you're going to squeeze your inner thighs towards each other. And then just gently take your knees to one side. So just so the outer hip on the other side lifts up. And come back to center. And then to the other side. And another couple of rounds here. Just a gentle twist, keeping the rib cage on the ground. Again, to center and take it over to the other side. Keep squeezing the thighs. Take it to one side, to center, and then to the other. Okay, and then just give your knees a hug. And then as you lower your feet down to the ground, you can stay with Shavasana with your feet wide, knees together. Or you can take your legs long, but as your legs come long, notice if the pelvis starts to pull forward here and you're contracting through that lower back, just pulling through the lower back. So if that's the case, just bend your knees, lengthen your tailbone towards your heels, and maybe just stay with the knees bent. Okay, just allow your body just to settle in on your mat. Allowing your nervous system to process all the poses, for them to integrate. And you're welcome to stay here as long as you like. When you're ready, you'll make your way up to a seated position. And then take your hands together at your heart center. Thank you so much for joining me. And don't forget to just check out those the heel down and that opening up through the hip flexors as you walk. And take a moment just to give yourself gratitude. Namaste.